and is slowly ending the natural order and creating this Plandopolis nightmare eugenics-based system. But how are they having regular jets? Because I'll see jets at the same level, even in hot weather, leaving condensation trails, but then I'll see one at the same level not. And then I find the patents where they add it to the jet fuel, so the companies don't even know. And the patent is where the aluminum dioxide in the kerosene, the jet fuel, is aerosolized by the jet engine to where perfect compartmentalization. I mean, most cities that put fluoride in the water, they really believe it's good for your teeth. They don't know it's an admitted chemical weapon. So from your research, how many different companies and groups are knowingly involved in this versus compartmentalized?
Well, we haven't gotten too much into who, and that's going to be the basis for my next film. But, Alex, there are a number of companies that benefit and that are most likely involved. Of course, Monsanto is involved. And if you control the weather, you can literally consolidate an enormous amount of monetary and political power into the hands of a few, and we'll get into that. And it's precisely what the film was about. What we were saying before the break, what we noticed about 500 to 1,000 miles ahead of a storm. That's the days where you see the intense trailing, planes going back and forth, and the sky turns into a very milky color. So we went to interview 20-year weatherman Scott Stevens, and he explained to us some of the science behind some of this, and it's very simple science to control the weather. If you look at the main ingredient in geoengineering programs and what we're finding in rain tests around the world now, it's aluminum. Aluminum is a very effective conductor in our sky. So what they are able to do when they put up this heavy canopy of aerosol aluminum through the use of HARP technology or other technology, they literally have the ability to heat up our ionosphere or other parts of our atmosphere. And when that heats up, it actually creates a lift. And in that lifting of the atmosphere, it creates a low pressure vacuum. And they have the ability to literally steer storms into certain regions, or in the case of this summer here in the United States, out of certain regions. And if you look back at some of the science, and geoengineers are very open about the way that their aerosols react with water molecules. And I went to an aerosol research conference, spoke with many professors. They all told me the same thing, that geoengineering could be used to control our weather. So when they put those aerosols into our sky, normal evaporation that should occur does not, and we'll explain that in a second. But these particles act as what's called cloud condensation nuclei. So when the water evaporates, naturally it should connect with other water molecules, eventually condensing and falling as rain. They are not doing that. They connect with these fine metal particulates, and they drift. And that's one of the main reasons why here in California we're having drought conditions, because the water that should be falling here drifts over the continental divide, but it eventually has to fall, and that's the reason we're getting the intense flooding in the Midwest. Now, a real important part of this drought that we're seeing, there's no question that this summer we have an engineered drought. And many people thought they quit spraying because you look over California, over the land, we have had very few visible trails. But we looked at satellites off of the Pacific and from the equator all the way up to Alaska, heavy trailing, not any sun getting through to the water. So this is creating the drought in this capacity.
That's right. The last 16, 17 years since this really started in earnest, they've just been beta testing. Now they're getting it tweaked down. And as the State Department memorandum says, they'll use food as a weapon. They'll use weather as a weapon. Owning the Weather 2025 Pentagon document. If they'll pay $22 billion to ship General Motors out of the country, they'll pay billions to shut our farms down.
We're on the march. The empire's
We're going to be going back to our guest and your calls, I promise, here in just a moment. I briefly wanted to remind everybody, we are listener supported. So when you buy books, videos, T-shirts, ball caps, we got my favorite camouflage ones back in. It supports the broadcast. I am hiring 6 new reporters. 4 of them are now here. The other 2 are coming soon. I'm hiring more video people, more camera people, more equipment. I just leased another space so we can have more studios. I'm all in here because we are reaching a lot of people. Doesn't mean I do the best job in the world, but you know what? I'm the most effective just because I took action. And I want to thank all of you for your support. And I tend to plug the InfoWars Health products where you can get the longevity stuff discounted when I'm taking them. Because here I am right now drinking a Pollen Burst Plus and my essential fatty acids that they have the best proprietary blend of, a fish oil with the key plant oils to help optimize your cholesterol. And something longevity doesn't have. They have a great seaweed, but I like the Mitophyllon that we sell from New Zealand. That's available at InfoWarsShop.com or go to InfoWarsHealth.com for the others. But it is your purchases at InfoWarsHealth.com that makes the transmission possible to a great extent. And also, don't forget, you can sign up for free auto ship there. If you pay $10 extra, you can also become a distributor and get discounts on the prices you see there at InfoWarsHealth.com. We also have InfoWarsTeam.com. Okay, you got cut off by that break. That was a short segment. Continuing with the filmmaker, the director and producer of Why in the World Are They Spraying? You were getting into this drought being engineered. And Al Gore has said, pay him money for carbon, and magically Gaia will make it be wet again, and the Mississippi won't run dry. Give us your research, your evidence, the scientists you talked to in the film for this summer's drought being engineered.
Yeah, well, again, these particulates act as cloud condensation nuclei. So this summer, again, we are seeing the entire Pacific from the equator all the way up to Alaska sprayed. And to get moisture, we depend on sunshine hitting that Pacific and clouds condensing. So with this artificial coverage, we are not getting much evaporation, but the clouds that do evaporate now are attaching to the metal particulate that's being sprayed, and instead of that rain falling, it drifts. Alex, I did spend about 3 weeks this summer after Barry Kulski and I finished producing the film. Of course, the crops are just being devastated there. Everything was extremely dry. What I did notice, though, when rain was in the forecast, we would see these big, beautiful cumulus thunderheads developing, and then boom, we'd see the planes spraying back and forth, literally putting an aerosol canopy over the storms. And within about 45 minutes to an hour.
No. I've watched it in Texas where it's not planes landing at the airport. They fly in and in front of the front and kill it.
They kill the storm, it falls apart, and that moisture drifts. So without question. But, you know, the first time I heard about this, and once we started investigating, I said, why in the world would anybody want to control the weather? And we began finding monetary, like G. Edward Griffin said in the first film.
Oh, there's the Chicago Mercantile, the same one that has the carbon tax. They've now got a controlling the weather and predicting it fund.
That's right. So people now are betting on the weather. And what we found, Mike Agnew, who is a trader at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, used the example as this. Through the use of weather derivatives, which many corporations actually use to offset the risk due to adverse weather. So they can essentially bet on adverse weather conditions. So if you have a crop, let's say worth $5 million in the Midwest, but you insure it through the use of these derivatives for $10 million, you have in a financial advantage if the crop fails. So what we're seeing, and what I found out, every commodity is driven by the ability to predict weather. And I'm not saying every trader who's trading these derivatives is in on this, but the people who are in cahoots, the multinational corporations who were aware of the drought agenda this summer, literally are making billions of dollars off of this drought that we have. And then we found out it goes much deeper to financial. Now we see that natural systems are being destroyed. Of course, we have the Hegelian dialectic problem reaction solution, which I hope we'll get into in this interview. But without question, there is a financial agenda behind these damaging programs, and some people are making billions of dollars at the expense of literally, Alex, every living thing on the planet. So this is really, really serious. Some of the consequences of geoengineering: ozone depletion. We now have a huge ozone hole over the northern hemisphere. Drought conditions. We now have most of the world, if you look at the global drought monitor, most of the world is in drought, offset rain patterns. And geoengineers are very open about this. They state if we start these programs, this is what we'll see. And what was most concerning to me was the statement that one of the people at the geoengineering conference made. He stated these programs, if they start them, which they obviously have, could disrupt the food supply of over 2 billion people.
And we have the globalists saying they want to cut the food off in the memorandums, like 200, State Department, to make us starve. Basically, there's a documentary that was voiced by William Shatner called Trinity, and it shows that world nuclear testing, and the U.S. did more than anybody combined, more than the Russians, the French, the you name it combined, the British combined. And, yeah, Trinity and Beyond. Thank you for correcting me, CJ. And in it, it shows over 100 tests firing high-powered hydrogen missiles, hydrogen bombs, into the upper atmosphere. And it shows old news clips, and they go, we're trying to blow a hole in the atmosphere to see if the atmosphere will off-gas into space. And I'm going, they tried to destroy our atmosphere. And it shows one night they detonate 20-plus high-power hydrogen bombs. And they don't do mushroom clouds in the atmosphere. There's these big, giant white balls. And next, we're going to try to blow up the Van Allen radiation belt. So they fire missiles into that. It's like it's mad scientists. Mad scientists are in control. And they're jacking with everything. And by the way, you say, you know, they say if they did this, it would happen. Bill Gates was just dumping stuff over New Mexico last month. They've got all sorts of testing. This has been admittedly going on. It's not like this isn't admitted because you keep adding the proviso of, yeah, they said this at this conference. I mean, they've got tens of thousands of admitted tests they've done. Go ahead.
And right now they're selling this to the public. So they're using the fear of global warming, stating, you know, again, there are some very serious consequences. It's going to destroy the ozone layer. All of these consequences, which, by the way, now are happening. But they say we are going to have to do this for the greater good of humanity, because if we don't do it, everyone's going to die. Alex, this is about money and power. And what we're finding, again, we interviewed Barb Peterson of Farm Wars, and she alerted us to some things that are happening to the farms across the U.S., even in Maui. We're seeing ecosystems collapse. In natural organic foods are dying. This is not speculation.
Sure, that's what I wanted to raise to you. All in the last two films, you talk to countless scientists. They test the soil, but even mainline studies say all this stuff's going up. People call me everywhere, but, I mean, I talk to old-timers. There aren't as many birds. There aren't as many bugs. On the West Coast, the trees are dying. What's going on?
Well, this is an attack on life itself. And the reason, and what I found out living in Hawaii, where I go after I'm in L.A., we live on an organic farm. We're dependent on natural sun, natural seeds, and rain, you know, natural systems. This is literally what every prophecy has been talking about, this big oppressive system. And I'll tell you what they do. Through death and destruction of these programs, they create what's called abiotic stress. Abiotic stress is everything that geoengineering creates. Is heavy metal contamination in our soil. It's drought. It's too much moisture, and it's fungal overgrowth, which is very deadly to crops. Geoengineering programs proliferate fungal overgrowth. So again, they create this abiotic stress, which, by the way, the EPA states that by the year 2030, we will see 50% more crop loss due to abiotic stress. And there is a company, Alex, and I'm sure you have heard of them, that has patented a genetically modified seed to address this abiotic stress. And that company is Monsanto. So through the death and destruction of natural systems, they come in with the solution to this program. And historically, farmers, after they planted a crop at the end of the season, they would get their seeds, use some of those seeds for the next season. Many of these seeds are what are called terminator seeds, and they will not regenerate. So that makes the farmer dependent year after year after year going to this company. Of course, we've seen sterilization studies that indicate a lot of other health implications with genetically modified seeds. And again, they sterilize our soil. So the farmers that we interviewed for why in the world are they spraying, one had seen a 60% decline in their ability to grow natural organic foods in the past 10 years since they've seen an increase of the aerosol trails from chemtrail programs. The other had seen a 70% decline in their ability to get yield. So again, this is...
No, I've talked to farmers